Hey everyone, it's Eric Mintel. Welcome to Bucks County Paranormal Investigations, the interviews. Tonight, I have put together the Avengers of the paranormal world. Tonight, we're going to talk about all things UFOs, cryptid, Bigfoot, Dogman, you name it, we're going to talk about it. I want to give a big shout out for our sponsors, Will Nicholson from Tomlinson Sotheby's International Real Estate in Sandpoint, Idaho. We've got Shanghai Jazz, Madison, New Jersey. McCool's Restaurant in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, and our newest sponsor, Judith Harris from Norris and McLaughlin, Attorneys at Law. And a big shout out for our friends at Cryptid headquarters, wearing this awesome shirt tonight that I was given, and they have some great gear, so go check them out. Cryptid headquarters, cryptidhq.com.
My name is Eric Mintel. By night, I'm a professional jazz musician, but by even later at night, I investigate the paranormal. I, along with my team at Bucks County Paranormal Investigations, travel the country investigating all things paranormal. This is Bucks County Paranormal Investigations.
So hey everybody, it's Eric Mintel, Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. I have assembled a great interview for you guys tonight. And we have got some really incredible guests tonight. I'm really happy they're here tonight. We have the one and only Tom Carey, and then we've got his writing partner, which is incredible, Don Schmidt, who you know, and he's been on both of these guys have been on so many TV shows, and their work with Roswell and the Roswell crash and the recovered bodies, I mean, is stuff of legend. So it's really incredible to have these guys here tonight. Also, equally incredible is to have Eric Spinner and Art Mack. They are Bigfoot researchers and doing a lot of incredible work down in the New Jersey Pine Barrens and pretty much all over the country. I mean, if you really think about it. And then we've got my buddy Dominic Sattel, who has been with us for many years. I've known Dom since high school, and Dom is not only a paranormal investigator, but he's also a spirit medium, which is really helpful on a lot of our cases because he goes in and feels these things and can almost pinpoint exactly what went on. Although when we were in Wisconsin, that was completely out of his wheelhouse, but we'll get into that later. But guys, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hey, it's a pleasure.
Our pleasure. Well, I'm just a half hour northwest of Milwaukee.
Okay.
So that's where, I mean, if I would have known you were coming into Wisconsin, I would have left for that week. But I'm sorry I missed the party, but I look forward to the next one. Hope we'll join you.
Absolutely.
We're coming back. We're definitely coming back in April. So if you could make it, that would be great.
That's the one thing about Tom and myself. And we used to get criticized for this in the past because we would actually, state that we were the only two proactive Roswell investigators in the world, bar none. And some of the others would take issue with that. And it's like, well, do you ever actually work out in the field? Well, no. Do you ever conduct any archaeological work at the crash site? Well, no. Do you ever actually track down any of the witnesses and then blindly go up to their front door, hoping that they'll even give you the time of day? Well, no. Well, that's what proactive is. You actually are engaged actively in the field. You're trying to make things happen.
Absolutely.
You're proactive in the sense that you're not just responding to something that happens. And so that's where Tom and we've worked so well together all these years, though he did let me down when you had him out in the field. And though he sat there and, he waxed, as far as expert professional, as far as with his anthropological, as far as viewpoints on Bigfoot, but you could not get him to go out into the woods, correct?
Exactly.
Nope.
Tom is you're a self-proclaimed chicken.
Have it on audio. We're still shaken up by it.
That's why I didn't join you.
Well, we don't think that. We don't think that here, Tom. You're a giant in our eyes.
I unabashedly admit it.
I've witnessed it firsthand. Yes.
Well, I know tonight is going to be a great talk. You guys it's phenomenal. And I know it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to go back to October 11th. we had the pleasure. I know Eric Spinner and Eric, you and I were talking about doing this Bigfoot investigation for a long time. We actually did an investigation during the day in July of 2020.
June, July.
Yep. And then to be on site at this new location was incredible. That you and Art both have had a lot of activity prior to us getting there. So you already knew where to go and what to do. Now, and ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know the New Jersey Pine Barrens, let me just say this. Dom and I, thank God we took his truck, because there is no way we could have gotten there with my car.
Here we go. It's my fault. It was dry.
Dry. It's always dry.
It's supposed to be dry,
puddles.
but
It's only a couple of rocks.
there were lakes that we had to go through. But anyway, we were oh, it was crazy. And Don, if you would have seen this, it was unbelievable. So we were 5 miles into the Pine Barrens, and we drove in, and we got out, went about 600 feet into this new area called the Bowl. And Eric, how new is this? How new is that area for you that you discovered it?
Well, I would say it goes back 4 or 5 years at least, because one of my attendees, Kevin Romero, actually turned me on to that area on one of my expeditions.
So we get out there, and we went about 600 feet in, and it was great because we set up base camp. And it was great to talk with Eric and Art about their protocols. A lot of people, and Don, you're talking about in the field. You know, this is what we do. We're in the field. We're hands-on. This is things. This is stuff that people don't know what goes on. They see the programs. They see, and Tom and I have talked about this, where they see a lot of hooping and hollering, but they're not there like we were. And for these guys, Eric was showing us how he does tree knocks, what all the other equipment. There's a lot of stuff involved here. Infrared, a lot of even like a bell, like a you know, to make sounds. And so it was really interesting to hear that, and how you find footprints too. That was interesting too. So all of that was great. But it was when Dominic and Art, and I'll get to your question about the Bigfoot UFO, Art, but when Dominic and Art were talking about, you know, Bigfoot and his research, we all heard this whoop. And it was the same thing Tom and I were talking about, that we thought, you know, and you hear on the TV shows, but I'll be damned if that's not what we heard. And so it was amazing. And then Eric's wife, Heather, it was incredible. Tom lost power.
Oh my God. I love you. I'll be with you guys.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's called the Curse of Sasquatch.
And you know, and Eric's wife, Heather, after we heard this whoop, it was incredible. She started answering it back. And I'll be damned if they were having a conversation. It was coming back and forth. So there was something there. We didn't see it, but we heard it. And there's something intelligent there. So this blew our minds. I mean, we were just absolutely incredible. And then Dominic, I'll have you ask Art again your philosophy about, you know, what we think's going on here.
Yeah, and you know what was different is that, you know, Art and Eric, they don't use video cameras. They use audio recording devices, but they don't have a video camera. Now, I know you guys are starting to do that, I think, from what I saw.
Yes.
And you're starting to record things, which I think is great. And when Art and I were sitting there, we were talking, you know, I was asking him questions, and Art, you're going to elaborate because I asked you before, but I asked about a UFO and Bigfoot connection. And, you know, I have a feeling, you know, what I think and what Eric thinks and what, you know, what Mintel thinks, and Tom and Don, you guys can jump in, but I think that there's a connection between them. And I asked you about it, and you were sort of elaborating on it, but kind of got cut off. So give me your thoughts on that.
Okay. Well, I still, as I was stating that night, don't believe that the aliens, the extraterrestrials, you know, pick up Sasquatch at, you know, in Mars and bring them over here and drop them off in the woods and say, hey, there you go. You know, I don't believe there's that connection with them. But I believe that just as these extraterrestrials are interested in us and studying us and because we are, bipedal, upright walking, primates, Sasquatch, similar. And I think as they abduct humans and do experiments on them, take tissue samples and whatever, I think they do the same with Sasquatch. They probably pick them up, abduct them, do samples. And if anyone sees a Squatch coming out of a UFO or being beamed down, it's because he was just abducted and they're letting him go, So that's kind of in a nutshell where I am with Bigfoot and UFOs. I do believe there is a connection only in that they're as interested in them as they are in us.
Go ahead, Don.
So how's that?
I love it. Go ahead, Don.
Back in the late 70s, early 80s, UFO Saga magazine, UFO Report, did a number of articles where they tried to draw the connection that if the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape, Yeti, that type of thing remained so elusive that they had to have help. And that's what the theory was based on, that they were somehow being shielded, protected, prevented from falling as far as into, the human clutches here on planet Earth, that type of thing. And then also, lest we forget that back in the 70s, the TV series The $6 Million Man, in a number of episodes, tried to make that, or they made that connection as well, that Bigfoot was nothing more than a bionic or a cyborg creation of an alien race, that type of thing. So we have to be careful where such folklore, if it is folklore, originates. If it's part of speculation or if it's based on actual eyewitness accounts. And I went back to those original articles, and they could not cite a single UFO situation that a Bigfoot was observed in conjunction with the sighting. It would only be in the case where there would be numerous UFO sightings in a given area, and then they would look, there were also numerous Bigfoot sightings also within that area 25 years ago, that type of thing.
Right.
So they were trying to make that connection.
I believe what you're saying there. And also now when you have guys like Stan Gordon, who in the 70s here in Pennsylvania, right in the middle of Pennsylvania, they had a huge UFO and Bigfoot flap where the UFOs and the Bigfoots were being seen at the same time. Very, very strange cases that he's got, where he's actually been on site and talked to the witnesses, and things have happened when he's trying to talk to the witnesses within minutes, maybe half hour or so of the sighting. So that's still going on today, that they're still getting these kind of reports. What the connection is, we have no idea.
From my perspective, Eric, I've always approached the Bigfoot phenomenon from an evolutionary perspective. I know there are stories of, like Art says, Bigfoot coming out of a spaceship or something like that. And as Don said, they did try to make, I remember when they tried to make that connection, but from my perspective, I just felt, well, and what Art said tonight, to me, makes logical sense.
That they're being abducted too.
Yeah. The only other answer I would think would be something supernatural, which I'm not particularly interested in, because I'm so interested in the potential evolutionary perspective.
And the scientific backbone of it as well. Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to delineate anything from that. It's just like all of these different ideas of how it could be here, and how it's been here for so long, and how many reports that we have going back to the 1800s. So, I mean, and then a supernatural aspect of it. I mean, we could talk about what happened to us in Wisconsin, because that was definitely, I believe, supernatural, what happened out there. And we can get into that a little later.
I'm just shocked that I've been researching with Art now for almost 14 years. And that's the first time I heard him talk about the abduction angle. So
yeah, that's
very interesting concept.
That's a great angle. I've never really heard about that either. And that's really cool. Now, the thing is, now you guys, and Art, you had mentioned this too, when you're on investigations, something's been happening the last few years that you're seeing this like red pinpoint of light. Now,
Yes.
what is that?
Recently, we have a new investigator on our team, Kristen, and she's a former paranormal investigator. And since she's been on our team, she's one of these people, she puts out like good energy, projects good energy, because honestly, a lot of places we go to, there just seems to be negative energy in the air.
Mhm.
So she tries to counter that by, by putting out good energy. And we've had a lot more of these lights in the woods and shapes. I just like a couple, like just before Christmas, she and I were out, and there were I saw that had two experiences, but one in particular, something was caught out of the corner of my eye, and I look, and here's this black mass coming from behind me, diagonally away from me, up a bit of a hill, up a trail into the bushes, making no sound. And it was about as tall as I was sitting in my chair, made no sound. It was just a blobous color, it was a blobous shape and probably a little lighter than black, like a very dark charcoal gray. What is that? But we're starting to get more of this paranormal stuff happening now. And I don't know if it's just because of, putting out this good energy, because I'm trying to learn how to do that as well, or if it's just that time, that it's just something that's now happening in the Pine Barrens. There's a long history of paranormal, ghost lights, phantoms out in the Pine Barrens, going back even to the First Nations people. So I don't know if we're experiencing that now or what it is.
You guys would probably know this, like in that area. What is the soil? What is the what is the earth like there? What kind of like materials are there?
It's acidic and it's sugar sand. I mean, there's sandstone, that's basically it.
There's also a lot of bog iron.
Bog iron, right.
And there are some people that believe that bog iron can hold energy.
Bog iron. Now, what is that from? What is it?
It's just something that naturally occurs.
Okay.
It's an ore. That's, it's iron basically, but it's surface or just below the surface. In fact, during the Revolutionary War, and I'm not sure if it went up to the Civil War, there were foundries in the Pine Barrens that collected the bog iron, and they made cannonballs out of it for the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
And it was only when, and it was so plentiful, they literally could just pick it up off of the ground. And it's only when they had to start digging for it that it was no longer cost effective, and the foundries shut down because it was not easily accessible at that point. But you can still see that stuff everywhere out in the woods, out in the Pine Barrens.
Unbelievable.
And Art made another point with regards to our our radio communication, that the bog iron, because sometimes we have difficulty communicating amongst teams, and he suggested that maybe the bog iron is responsible for interfering with the radio communication.
It's getting, because the ground has so much iron in it, the water, and when the trees absorb that, it draws the iron up into the trunk of the tree and then the branches, and in effect, I wouldn't say, I use the term Faraday cage. I don't know if that's actually what it would be, but I think that having all that iron in the trees around you has to have some effect on, on the radio communications.
Well, that was the other thing too. That night, your radio went haywire. It was, and you never had that happen before.
No.
It was and Tom, it was recircling the channels on the
scanning.
It was just constantly scanning.
Getting back to the question you asked Art about the lights, though, I had an experience last fall in Pennsylvania at one of our locations. And I'll tell you what, we went to a spot where there's been activity over the years. In fact, there's actually been one or two people killed at this location.
Wow.
And so I took my team up the trail and went a little bit further up the hill than they originally had bargained for. But again, we stopped and made a little base camp right there on the trail. And within a minute, we got 3 howls. I mean, like unbelievable. And I had my recorder off. I was the leader, and I made a beginner's mistake. I didn't bring my camp chair with me. I didn't have my audio recorders going. So I got 2 out of 3 howls, which were pretty cool. So we went up a little further after that. And then I left the team sitting again at a spot, and 2 other guys and myself walked further up. And we were about, I don't know, an hour up the trail. And I said, let's stop here and do some provocations. They couldn't hear us. We couldn't hear them, that kind of thing. And so I actually looked to my left, and about 8 feet off the ground was this like headlamp right across the trail from me. Okay. About 15 yards away, white headlamp. I had never experienced anything like this before. Okay. I went like this to see if it was a star or maybe a plane approaching or maybe even a trail runner. Who knows, just to eliminate those. And then it just lowered down by itself. It just went down.
Wow.
And I turned to the two guys that I was with and I said, "Did you see anything?" And they said, "I saw a flash." And then the one guy actually got zapped. We call it zapped, where you have some, infrasound. Okay. But he felt like he had two fingers on his forehead.
Wow.
Causing pressure, which made him actually have to sit down. This is a big guy, LEO, actually. Okay. Tough guy.
Wow.
And the other guy both felt knotted up in our stomachs. So again, I can't explain it, but it was one of those experiences that makes me start saying,
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but a few expeditions would claim that they found would look to be like protective attempts at creating structures.
That they're not,
like,
that's not tools. That's not tool. But I know what
no.
you're talking about. Those are things that non-tool
They
users.
break branches and
And I asked my paleontology teacher about that. My professor, teacher sounds like high school, but this is. I said, what about the? He says, well, those are things, classic things that primates do. Those are non-human primates do those things, and certainly a non-tool using hominid would do things like Paranthropus would do things like that, because they found things with Paranthropus sort of like that, but no stone tools.
Yes, Eric and Art, real quick. Do you ever, let's just talk about something completely different. When you guys are out in the field, now, do you ever feel any sense of fear? Do you ever sense anything like you're in a dangerous situation? Have you ever felt that way?
I have felt occasionally just an uneasy feeling, but I can honestly say I've never felt fear or that I was in danger from something, even though, technically there are bears out there, other carnivores that might want to eat me. Of course, I've got a thing. I always eat a cheeseburger on the way out. So when I'm sweating, meat comes out of my pores, so they know I'm a prime predator as well.
There you go.
very wise, very wise.
Eric?
I got them beat. I have to say, I had surf and turf on Saturday night, and I was oozing gooey delicious. And let me tell you, I had the crap scared out of me. I'm not even kidding.
All right, tell us about it.
We actually did go out on a midnight hike on the closed off road, which was covered in snow. So we parked by the gate and we hiked in, and within 5 minutes, we came across what looked like a scuffle in the snow. We found turkey footprints. Okay. And right next to them were like bobcat. And I say feline because the claws were not showing like a canine would. Okay. So right. I'm looking down, we're both looking down, and I had my recorder, the one that I used to get those whoops, but I wasn't listening through headphones. So I was just recording, and I heard what sounded like something running right at us. Okay. And I literally said, "Yo, something coming for us." And I picked up my thermal imager and I looked immediately in the direction, didn't see anything. And we were silent right after that. Okay. And literally you heard something crunching either in the snow or making branch snaps. It was hard to decipher. I got this recorded because I just listened to it last night. I kid you not, there was nothing on therm. And so again, this area has had some paranormal experiences on previous expeditions also.
No doubt. No doubt.
I was shaking.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, that I believe you because, we had the same thing. Let's switch gears for a second here. Let's go to what Dominic and I encountered in Wisconsin.
Good.
We were on the farm of Lee Hampel. So what Dominic and we saw pictures that he's got on the trail cams there that'll just blow your mind. It's got weird, like in the snow, footprints that go from one straight line of footprints that morph into two. Also, weird lights in the trees. We were talking about the pinpoints of light. He's got these weird, it just looks like UFO type lights in the trees just going through these thick trees. There's nothing there. This is flat farmland. There's nothing there.
Well,
So
the one light that was a cylinder, and
right.
it came down and stopped about
looked,
4 to 5 feet above the ground, and it just stopped.
Now,
and light continues. It doesn't, and this thing just stopped.
But I'll take this even a step further. And Don, when you see these pictures, you're going to freak out too. Tom, this is unbelievable. So the pictures that Lee's got, there's a weird mist that happens. And this is something that's been talked about with the Bigfoot phenomenon. We asked you, Eric, if you ever experienced this, and you said you didn't, but a lot of people are experiencing this weird mist, like this mist kind of thing that's happening. And what Lee's got on the trail cam is unbelievable. One picture, he's got the roadkill deer. He's got 18 roadkill deer that just went missing that he put out. He has the deer in the frame. All of a sudden, the mist comes in this frame. 30 seconds later, they take another picture on the trail cam. The mist is gone, and the mist before that was over top of the deer. The deer is gone, completely disappeared.
Wow.
Very, very strange stuff. He's got pictures of the strange lights in the field that looks like a doorway, and there's something standing in the doorway. Now, we're talking about maybe a portal situation, like a Skinwalker Ranch.
The first word that comes to mind. Let me ask, as far as the strange footprints that then veer off in opposite directions.
Yeah.
Has he or anyone ever followed them? Is there any cases where the footprints just abruptly end?
Yes.
And they do.
Over demon type of thing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, he actually, him and his brother followed one of the trails, and it started off the side of the field. All of a sudden there were footprints that started, and this is in the snow. So there was nothing leading up to it. They followed the tracks, and the tracks just stopped.
Yes.
And that was it. So you had, he said probably 30 footprints that he followed, and it just began and started and stopped and ended, and that was it.
This is the one thing that kind of really intrigues me about this and why we're talking about the UFO Bigfoot phenomenon, because there is one picture, and I'll send this to you guys, Tom and Don. I will send this to you. There, it looks like there's orbs that are in the sky, and in the orb, it looks like there's a creature inside this orb. That's like, and there was like what, 4 or 5 of them, right, Dom?
Oh, it was like 5 or 6 even.
Like it looks like a cross. It's like this thing. It's an outline, and he's got these pictures on there, and it's like, are these things coming from the sky? Are they coming in? Now, the night that Dom and I were on the property, Dom looks up, and prior to this, it had been a very cloudy night. We thought it was going to rain. We thought we were going to not be able to do this.
They were expecting it.
Exactly. And so we get out to the field, and it's about 8:30.
Yep.
And we get out to the field. It's clear as a bell over the field. It was absolutely clear. Don just looks up and says, "What the hell is that?" And here, and you could see it on the video, and you guys have seen this. It was just a solid ball of light that was going over. And it was, for all intents and purposes, a UFO.
It started right above us.
Right above us.
It was right above us and then continued.
What got me thinking about those orbs that we saw in the daylight, those daylight orbs that he got, I'm thinking was something deposited that night, because right after that is when we heard those howls, which we still don't know what the hell that was. That whole night was unbelievable, because when we got back to the hotel, the entire power went out in Elkhorn that night.
Curse of the Sasquatch.
Exactly. Then Lee sends me a text the next day. Oh, by the way, at 5 o'clock, that trail cam that was down where you guys were stopped working. It was like something turned it off, and it didn't take another picture until 7 o'clock the next morning. And those trail cams go on all night long. They're not time sensitive or anything. This is a weird thing. Something turned it off. And so this has been really an eye-opening interview, and talking to you guys, it always gives me new ideas and other ways of approaching this subject. But hey, I want to thank all of you guys for being here tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for joining us and tuning in. But again, Don Schmidt, Tom Carey, Art Mack, Eric Spinner, Dominic Sattel, thank you guys. Be safe out there, okay?
It's a pleasure. Yeah, we got to do this every month.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody. Have a great night.